Hey designers, my name is Karthik from Design School for WordPress Beginners, the place where I teach you how to design, build and customize your websites. If you're new here, consider subscribing and let's get into the video. I've already explained all the basics of Elementor that you need to know to get started as a beginner in a previous video. I'll leave a link to that in the description. So before watching this video, you can watch that and come back and watch this video. In this video, I'll show you how to create multiple columns and nested columns. I'll try to explain sections, columns and widgets with a perfect analogy, not the perfect, of course, but you can relate pretty much to it. So you can think of your Elementor design or Elementor page as an office building. So your office building is actually your Elementor template. So it has a lot of floors, right? Floor 1, floor 2, ground floor and a lot more. And within these floors, you have your cubicles, and within your cubicle, you are seated with your laptops or desktops, right? Let me explain this and relate it to Elementor. So the whole office building is your Elementor template, and the floors are basically your Elementor sections. And within each floor, you have cubicles, which are your columns. And within each column, within each cubicle, you have your objects, which are basically your laptops, yourself, or any other belongings. So here's a floor that has two cubicles, and within this cubicle I have few objects. That's what it means. That's almost the near perfect analogy to understand Elementor sections and columns. Let's see what this template is made up of. As I told you, the blue line highlights the whole section, and within this we have our dotted column, and within the dotted column there's a blue widget. So either the section or the widget itself is highlighted in blue, and the columns are highlighted by the dotted border. You can see it over here. So this column is made up of three widgets, which is a heading widget, a text editor widget and a button widget. So that's what this whole column is made up of, and of course there's a background image to it. And this column is made up of, this section is made up of two columns with a white background. So within this column, I can click on this and there's an icon box widget. And within this column, there's an image widget. It's that simple. Here's our next section. So I can click on this. So I have a bigger column that actually has a heading. And within this column, I have an inner section widget, which basically holds multiple columns. So this is how we nest our widgets. So let's go ahead and create this ourselves. So I'll just undo my action. So it's a blank page now. So let's create our section first. So I'll select a single column layout. I'll click on plus, and I can drag in any widget into this plus button or wherever it shows blue color. So this blue rectangle means that I can drop my widget over there. So whenever there's a plus button, it's there to create a new section. So if you click on this, it will create a section below the last created section. Or if you want to create a section above this section, you can click on plus, and you can see that the plus button appears on top of this section. So when you click on it, you can see that this section is created above this. So that's how you add sections, either by clicking on the section itself or by clicking on this pink plus button. That's how you create sections. So how do you create columns? So once you create a section based on the type of layout, so if I pick a section, it will automatically give me the column structure. So I can start with a single column, 2 columns, 3 columns, 4 columns. Let's go with 4 columns. So now within my section, I have 4 columns. This gray plus button is there to add widgets. So when you see a blue or pink button, it's there to add sections, and this gray button is to add widgets. Of course, you don't necessarily have to click on this. You can click on this button which summons all your widgets. So you can simply click and drag wherever you see blue rectangle. So wherever you see blue rectangle, you can drop your widget there and it automatically fits right into that. So within this section, when I dragged my widget into this column, it moved this widget and made room for this heading widget. Similarly, I can also click on this plus button. It will take me to my widgets screen, so I can drag in a button. So when I drag in my button, there will be a button widget within the first column, and again within this first column I can drag another widget. So as you can see, the column is highlighted by the gray dotted border, and within that gray dotted border are my button and my heading widgets. You can do the same with other columns. So now that you've learned how to add widgets within sections or columns, and there's one more way to add widgets. You can simply click, and as I've told you, wherever there's a blue rectangle you can drag them, and wherever there's empty space you can also drag a single widget, and that will create a section and a column for that particular widget. Let me do that again. So let me remove all this. So now I don't have any widgets. I'll click on this to get back to my widgets screen. So I'll just drag in a button. I didn't even create a column. I'll just drag in a button and it creates a section and a column for that. Let's do that again. Let me pick another widget. So I'll maybe pick icon widget. So if I move within this, I can either put it on top of this widget or this widget and within this column. And you can see that it's surrounded by this gray dotted border, and this is my widget. I can also click and drag it outwards, and I can remove this widget now. I'll click, and instead of dragging it into this particular section, I'll just drag it over this empty space where the border is highlighted in dotted blue. So that's to indicate that the Elementor screen will create a section and a column for this widget. So drop it and you have a section and a column for this widget. It's that simple. You don't even have to create a section and column from the beginning. However, if you know the layout, you better start with column and section. So after creating a section, you can dynamically add columns. So let's say if you want to add another content on, so let's say I have a heading widget over here, and let's say I want to create a new column. You can simply do that by right clicking on this column, or wherever there's gray border, you can right click, and if it says edit column, you can simply go over here and say add column, and that will add a new column next to this particular column. Let's do that again. So I'll go to this gray area, right click, I'll click on add column, and that will add another column within this section onto this column's side. Now I can add widgets within each column. So I can maybe have text editor here, can have a button over here. So now I have multiple columns. That's how you create multiple columns. So you can create columns, multiple columns, while creating the section itself, or dynamically by right clicking on a column and clicking on add new column. It's that simple. And there are situations where you want to have multiple columns within a column, which is nothing but your nested columns. So now I have my heading widget, and let me align it to the center. Now I want to have 3 icon boxes specifying features of this. This is my awesome product, and now I want to have 3 icon boxes highlighting 3 best features of my product. So I can simply do that by dragging 3 widgets into this, but if I want it more conveniently, I can click and drag this inner section, and you can see that the inner section can also be dragged in here, meaning when you drag it into here, it will create its own row and column, and the inner section will have multiple columns. Anyway, I just want inner section within this. You can also put it above or below this. It's highlighted in blue rectangle. Leave it, and within this particular column I have multiple columns. So this is how you achieve nested columns by using inner section widgets. Of course, you can remove this. There's other way to do this. You can simply add a widget first within this, and that will create a column, that will not create a column for this. So you need to add intersection. So let me delete this widget. And whenever you want to have multiple columns within columns, or in other words, whenever you want nested columns, just click and drag the intersection widget, and you can click and add as many columns as you want within this particular column. So now I can have 3 icon box widgets. I can also remove these columns simply by right clicking whenever there's a gray background. So I know it's the column. I'll click on delete, and that will delete the column. You can delete the section by clicking on this X, and that will delete the section. That will delete any section. So let me add my icon box widget. I'll search for it, click and drag it into this. Now I can duplicate it 3 times. Once, twice. Now I have 3 icon box widgets with 3 columns which are nested within this column. So inner section effectively is used to have nested columns. So now I can say cool features about my product. I can have a heading widget, and then it can be backed up by icon box widgets. So that's how you add multiple columns, and that's how you nest columns. So by using intersection widget, we have nested columns. So here's my main column within which I have various other columns. I can also do this with other columns. And remember, you can always drag intersection widget within a section, but not within another intersection. As this is my intersection widget, Elementor won't allow me to drag it within this. Even though it is technically a section, it is an intersection. So intersection can only be dragged into a proper section, not within another intersection. I can either drag on top of this or on to the bottom of this. So let me drag on top of this and leave it. So within this whole section, I have this section and this section. So that's how you nest sections. And within this column, I have multiple columns. That's how you nest sections and columns in Elementor. I'll talk to you in the next video. Peace.
And that's it for now, and hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure to give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And if you need anything else, don't hesitate to ask. I'm ready to help you. Catch you in the next video. Peace.